When you think of nature, what comes to mind? Probably a beautiful park, a forest, a beach, right? But what if I told you nature is also our planet's most essential and pretty much invisible service provider? It's a huge idea, so let's get right into it. Okay, so let's start with a thought experiment. Just imagine for a second. What if the forest that gives a whole community its clean water just vanished? Gone. What happens to local health, the economy? It's a pretty intense question, I know, but it gets right to the heart of this massive, hidden system that's working for us literally every single day.
And that's really the thing, isn't it? We just take for granted all these incredible benefits our planet gives us for free. We don't even think about them. But these aren't just, nice to haves. They're absolutely fundamental to our survival, to our economies, to everything.
So, there's a name for all this stuff. Scientists call them ecosystem services. Now let's unpack what that fancy term actually means.
Okay, here's the official definition. Ecosystem services are basically all the benefits, both direct and indirect, that we get from natural ecosystems. These are the things that are foundational to, well, our well-being. It sounds simple, right? But the idea behind it is a total game changer.
A good way to wrap your head around this is to think about a city. You've got your public works, right? Sanitation, electricity, clean water, they're always just running in the background, keeping things going. Well, ecosystem services are exactly like that, but for the entire planet. They're just constantly humming along, supporting us whether we're paying attention or not.
All right, to make this a little less abstract, scientists have broken these services down into 4 key categories. You can think of them as nature's 4 main jobs.
Okay, let's run through them. First up, provisioning services. This is the tangible stuff we can actually touch and use. Food, clean water, wood, you name it. Then we've got regulating services. These are the processes that keep our environment stable. Think climate regulation or bees pollinating our crops. Super important. Third is cultural services. This is all the non-material good stuff we get. That feeling you get on a hike or the spiritual connection to a place. And last but definitely not least are the support services. These are the absolute bedrock for everything else. We're talking about things like soil formation and photosynthesis. Without these, none of the others could even happen.
And the really cool thing is that this stuff is happening at every single scale. On a global level, you have massive forests acting like giant carbon sponges, regulating the climate for all of us. Zoom into a regional level, and you might see protected watersheds in a country like Ecuador, making sure an entire city has clean drinking water. Then zoom all the way down to the local level, a single farmer's field where bees are pollinating the crops. It's this incredible, interconnected system working from the planetary all the way down to the personal.
Okay, so we get what they are, but that leads to the next big question. How on earth do you measure this stuff? How do you put a value on nature? Well, let's get into that.
And this is where it gets tricky, right? If these services are free, then how can you possibly slap a price tag on them? How do you measure their true value? It feels impossible, but believe it or not, researchers actually have a system for doing just that.
It boils down to a pretty logical 4-step process. First, they identify what the key services in a particular area are. Is this place all about water purification, or is it more about recreation? Step 2, they measure. They use scientific indicators to figure out the ecosystem's capacity to actually deliver that service. How much clean water can it produce? Third, they model and map it all out. This is where tools like GIS come in, creating these incredible visualizations of where the services are happening and how strong they are. And finally, they evaluate. This is where they look at the real-world economic and social impact of it all. It's a way of turning hard science into information that's, tangible and useful.
And I want to be really clear about this. This is not just some dusty academic exercise. Not at all. The entire point is to be able to talk about the importance of nature in a language that everybody gets, a language that policymakers, business leaders, and just regular communities understand. And what language is that? The language of value. So once you start thinking this way, once you start putting a value on what nature does, it forces you to face a really, really tough question. It's this ultimate balancing act, right? Between protecting nature and, using it. And figuring out how to navigate that tension is absolutely crucial for our future.
And this really brings us to the core conflict. On one side, you have the argument for total conservation. Basically, protect these ecosystem services no matter what, even if it puts limits on the local economy. But on the other side, you have the idea of sustainable use. This approach says, hey, we can allow for local economic activities as long as we do it in a smart, sustainable way that doesn't totally wreck the ecosystem. This right here, this is the fundamental trade-off that communities all over the world are wrestling with every single day.
So you can see the goal here isn't really to pick a side. It's not about conservation versus economy. The whole point of this framework is to give us the information we need to make smarter, more strategic decisions. It's about finding that sweet spot, that balance between our immediate human needs and the long-term health of the planet that sustains us.
Which leaves us with a really tough question to chew on. Should we prioritize absolute protection for an ecosystem, even if doing so limits a local community's economy? I mean, what's the right call there? There is absolutely no easy answer. But, and this is the key takeaway, understanding the true value of what nature gives us for free, well, that's the first, absolutely essential step in figuring out how we move forward.